Hey everybody, so just taking a minute to pop out a quick video for you guys, another what sold video. We're talking about the week of August 12th through the 18th, so a couple of weeks ago, and it was kind of an average week for us, just normal, nothing to complain about. We're going to start with eBay and this set of 6 lobster crab forks. The brand was FFE or something like that. Anyway, sold for the full asking price of $20. These were just in a bag of other flatware that I had ended up getting at an estate sale. And so it's always a bonus when some of the other odds and ends that end up in the bags at thrift stores or places like that end up being sellable as well. So love when that happens. Next up is a hat. Just a kind of basic Husqvarna camo hat. Husqvarna is a good brand. It's kind of like Kubota. I don't know. We just kind of can sell those hats, like bread and butter type hats. This one sold for $18. Next up is this dish, this like little tray, I guess you could say, like a serving platter. Not terribly huge. And the pattern we've sold before. The pattern is called Hardinger Dancers, and I always say Fig Joe in my head. I'm sure there's a more Norwegian way of saying it, like, I don't even want to attempt it. But as you can see, this particular one, it was licensed, the design is licensed by Fig Joe, but it was Berquist, the importers. You'll see, I've sold other stuff by this importing company before. And anyway, so the pieces I've sold before were made directly by Fig Joe, but Fig Joe Flint. And so I've sold like mugs or other plates or things like that. But this one sold for $24.99. I used to sell a lot of this stuff on Etsy when I had more of an Etsy vintage presence over there. And I was happy to see that this one ended up selling on eBay for $25. Next up is another hat. This is sold for $24.99. A Fargo, just souvenir hat. A lot of times these foam trucker hats that are just printed with the design on them don't do as well as like the patches or things like that. But this one kind of had a nice look, and Fargo obviously had some people interested in that. So $24.99 for that hat. This got picked up at one of the first times Mr. Pish Posh and I went yard selling together this year. He might even have shown it in one of the videos, but it's just a little mortar and pestle. And only one of the pieces was marked Coors USA, and the other one I don't think was marked at all. And it had condition issues. It was chippy and everything. But, you know, mortar and pestles can sell pretty well. And this one sold for $24.99. It's just really little, it's just tiny little thing. But we're happy that it moved on to a new home. Next up are some shorts. They're by Prana. We're kind of getting out of short season. We definitely sell less shorts in the winter, even though people, you know, there's still people who live in warmer climates or people who go on vacations and things like that. So we usually just leave the shorts up all year, but we took a $20 offer on these. They're carpenter style, I think, shorts, whereas cargo will do a little bit better, at least for the current trending styles. Okay, so this was an old baseball, again, picked up at a yard sale. We might have shown it in a video, and we let it go for $25. So this particular one, you know, we didn't know the age. Finding comps is a little bit more difficult, and so we kind of start off at a higher price. But Mr. Pish Posh we got the offer, and he was like, whatever. He's like, I don't want to, you know, we don't want to die with our stuff. But, you know, when there's not a clear comp or information about it, we're just happy to, you know, make a little profit, move it on to another collector or buyer or whoever. Here's an example of a hat that we started off way too high. I don't think we could find much like it. And Ballybunion, I believe, is a fairly high-end golf course. And so a lot of times that can add value to the item that you're selling. This one was not getting any interest at a higher price. And so we dropped it back to kind of our regular $24.99. Got an offer for $18, and it was going overseas. So I know they paid a lot more in shipping and that kind of thing. So happy to move that one on. These two shirts, Mr. Pish Posh decided to just lot up. They are by Sims, which is not a bad brand for fishing shirts. We usually sell-through rate is pretty good. We sell every Sims piece we sell, even if it's embroidered with a company. These were just kind of lightweight vented fishing shirts, and they're a size medium, kind of a brighter colors and everything. So we just put them together and took an offer for $40. These also sold internationally. Probably if they were a bigger size, we would have listed them separately. Okay, Pentax, I believe, if I am correct, that Mr. Pish Posh found this recently on our road trip at a little thrift in Montana, and it sold for $85. He did do some research, and if it had a different lens on it, made in a different place or something like that, it would have been a lot more valuable. But as it was, I think we paid like $10 and it sold for $85. And what we've done, because we had a camera come back to us, even though we disclosed that a camera's not fully tested and everything like that, we did have a camera come back to us that had sold for a pretty good price, but it was advertised as, not guaranteed, but when it came back, they said, they ran a roll of film through it and the shutter works sometimes and not sometimes, so it probably would need a little bit of work on it. But they wanted to return it, which is fine. That's our policy, is that all our returns get accepted, but we don't pay for every single return to come back to us, only the ones where it was our fault. So, so that one we did pay, we got it back and relisted it. But it kind of prompted us, because we only have one kind of return policy for everything, and even though we make the claims, if that's something we're not guaranteeing it doesn't really matter. They'll still be able to return it. So as you can see on this camera listing, what he ended up doing, Mr. Pish Posh went through our camera listings, put as is in the front. We changed the condition to be for sure, to make sure we have it under the condition of for parts are not working. And it still doesn't stop people from returning, but I think it manages expectations right at the beginning. And we also drop prices on our used cameras. If there was no way for us to test it, if there was no way for us to run film through it, then we just drop the price, and we're not trying to get top dollar. So if there is any kind of repair that needs to be done, person feels like maybe they just have a little bit more, they haven't spent so much on the camera that they can't spend a little bit more to work on the repair as well. Okay, a coffee mug comes up next, sold for $25 very quickly. I found this at Goodwill. I found it at Goodwill. Barney's Beanery from Historic Route 66. It's kind of a restaurant ware, diner ware, because it's Homer Laughlin china, but not super vintage. And this, I think all I found when I looked at Goodwill on my phone, that I found some other dishes like plates or things that had sold. So I felt comfortable picking that up. So $25 for that. Next up is a vest by Rockies. So we have sold the Rockies Western style jeans before. And so we were happy to find this vest. $35 is the offer that we ended up taking. And yeah, anyway, we just know to kind of be on the lookout for that brand. And so that was the first time finding a vest by them, anything other than pants. This was a good sale. It should teach me to look through the sportswear at Goodwill or in the men's section a little bit more often. I tend to skip that aisle. I don't know. Because I don't really get into selling like performance clothing or, you know, just t-shirts. Like there's not usually big money in a lot of those. There's just like racks and racks of like Under Armour base layer, you know, or workout shirts or things like that. But hidden in there a lot of times are some pretty good things. So there could be some golf shirts we've come across. Mr. Pishposh is much more thorough about looking through that section. But then he also does end up picking some stuff up for himself as well. So that helps. This one, I think I was looking through everything because it was a half off men's clothing day. And so I saw this. I looked up what it said on it. The Asos T Cento Evo. I looked it up, saw some good prices. And this did end up selling for $75. Here is a nice little sweater. Now I could feel in the racks that this was a very nice feeling sweater. It turned out to be mohair alpaca blend, but it's interesting because this thrift store, anytime there's cashmere sweater or something like that, they'll mark it for like $40. Even if it's just a department store brand that would barely sell for $40 on eBay. And in any case, I think what happened is this was supposed to have a tag up here and it didn't. So if they saw that it was cut out, they didn't find any other tag. And so they just priced it at like $9, which I guess that's kind of normal for them. But anyway, I got it on half price day, and so I got it for $4.50. But I was trying to figure out material content, and so I did dig a little deeper into the sweater itself and found Saison. And so I've heard other resellers talk about it. It's probably my first time ever finding that brand, and it can be, some pieces can go for really good money. I ended up only listing it for $39.99 because of the size tag being missing and this part right here, just some loose trim at the top that would need a quick fix. But it sold within like a week or so or less for the full $39.99. So here's the camera that came back to us that kind of prompted the whole like revamping of our strategy for vintage electronics. And it sold again. It sold again for $100. I think we were in the middle of negotiating with one buyer, and then another buyer offered us $100, so we went ahead and took that. And interesting, I noticed today that this buyer came back a few days later and bought something else from us, something totally unrelated. So I don't even know if they had gotten the camera yet, or if they just saw some promotional emails from eBay and went shopping again, but I thought that was pretty cool. And those winter hats, they are starting to sell. So Sherpa gear, lamb's wool, knit beanie. Let's see, I ended up putting all of these out of order. $24.99, full asking price. So just kind of a classic style, you know, that people like. And Sherpa gear, I think, can be an okay brand. Okay. Here's another camera that sold. This one sold for $55. And I don't remember where this one got picked up. This could have been on our road trip as well. But it had a lot of the stuff with it. I could be remembering that wrong. But anyway, $55 for that. And another beanie hat, ski hat. Love the colors on this. I love picking up Columbia hats that have these like very 90s colors. They always seem to do well for us, so $24.99 on that. We sold this knife. We've sold this knife a couple times. This one sold for $26.99. I think Mr. Pish Posh found this one, and he recognized right away that I had found one at an estate sale that he had listed and sold, and so he was like, hey, this is that knife we just sold. And so he picked that up, and that was $26.99. And this came from our, I'm pretty sure, our clearance center there. Mr. Pish Posh was getting into glassware. He's much more thorough again, as you can see the pattern. He's much more thorough about everything. Looking through glassware and just playing around with what he found, what he finds in lists. And it's a way to learn, right? You just kind of try things out and see what happens. So this did sell for $16.99, Bombay Sapphire, just like a martini glass or whatever. So, and then this dress, I like picking up dresses like this, like a patio dress. This one was Crinkle. The brand is just National, but this thing sold super fast. So it was just a cotton dress, but very, loose fit and everything like that. $24.99. I kept the price just kind of average and hoping to move it pretty quickly, and that's what worked. Then another pair of shorts. Nike, these are things that I wouldn't normally pick up if they were pre-owned. But again, I think this was a day that men's clothing was half off at Goodwill. And so I was a little bit more thorough looking through all the different, there's a rack that's kind of up high, which is kind of hard for me to reach, where they have like the men's sportswear, but bottoms. And so it's just a lot of sweatpants and things like that. But I saw a tag, so they look like nice material and everything, so I picked those up. Those sold overnight. $35 for those Nike running shorts or just shorts or whatever. Here's an item that's supposedly coming back to us. The return got open, but I don't know that they shipped it yet. And they just said they didn't like it. It wasn't what they were expecting, so whatever that means. I'm actually surprised that more hats don't come back to us, because hats are very personal and they're very, like, the way they fit. Mr. Pish Posh wears a lot of baseball caps, and he's kind of particular about how they fit, right? So, I mean, we get ours secondhand, but, he'll try one out and be like, I don't like how that fits. So I'm surprised more hats don't come back to us, but anyway, I'm glad they don't. But I can't really blame people when they do want to return it, because they don't get to try it on. This mug sold for $12. It got picked up just because it's our favorite style. One of our favorite style of mugs to sell is just these no-spill wide bottom mugs. But this just had kind of a cheesy little cartoon frog thing going on with it. The brand was Moods with a Z, and it sold for $12. Nice flatware sale. Yay! 2 teaspoons sold for $60. This was the Dance Designs Torin. I'm pretty sure the teaspoons were the most valuable. And so I have 5 available, 1 sold. So I had 6 sets of these. So I did have 12. So I could have done 3 groups of 4. But a lot of times what I'll do is, if a spoon is more valuable or a piece of flatware is more valuable, I will make the lot a little bit smaller or sell them individually. A lot of times people are like, $30 a spoon, but they can't find it anywhere else, right? And so but they don't want, maybe they don't need 4, right? They might need 1 or 2, or they're just going to buy a couple at a time kind of thing. So that seems to be working for me anyway. As we've talked about flatware, there's so many different ways you can list it, and stay tuned for Flatware Fridays. I mentioned that in my video on Monday, so I will have a video coming out on Friday talking about flatware, and we're going to try to do Flatware Fridays maybe not every single week, but as much as I can. And we'll talk about it till there's nothing left to talk about. We'll see how it goes. Okay. Then this is just a Nintendo Game Boy power supply, sold for $18.99. And then this t-shirt, I forgot to ask Mr. Pish Posh. It's possible he picked this up. I think it was recently. It was just a local thrift store had like $1 off shirt, or dollar shirt day. So any shirt in the store was like $1. And so Mr. Pish Posh dug through all the different men's shirts in the back while I kind of looked out in the women's. And he picked up this t-shirt. I think it's basically just merch. So it was, I looked it up real quick because I forgot to ask him, and he's out on a job today. But I found a website selling the clothing, but it also talked about music videos. And so it looked like it was an artist, and this was just a merch, t-shirt that's, you could buy to support an artist. So now let's talk about Depop. Depop coming in with 7 sales this week. I sold more on Depop than I sold on Poshmark, which is really unusual. And we start off with these Free People boots that I thought would sell for much, much more, but they only sold for $41.70 after being listed for so long. They're Free People and Jeffrey Campbell, and just like totally open all the way up the front, lace up all the way. It, there was a few condition issues, but anyway, I just thought someone would want these. My pictures weren't super great. I probably could try to figure out how to redo that, but in any case, I was happy to just not see them anymore and move them on for, like I said, about $42. These sold for $20, these 2 Colorado ski resort mugs. We were thrifting together at Goodwill, and they were spotted by the mister, and so he was like, oh, I'm going to get those. And so he did, and listed them together. I don't know if I even noticed that there was 2 of them, but they sold really quickly within a few days on Depop for $20. After we cross-posted them, of course. $15.30 is what this hat sold for. This Gap, like bucket hat, boonie hat. Nothing special. Came from our favorite place. Now, if you remember last week on Depop, there was a guy who bought the blue Pendleton jacket, and he messaged us, I think even before he got his jacket, but he messaged us and said there was a few other hard goods or like vintage things that he was interested in our store, and he wondered if we would bundle. So I said this time I was like, even though my bundling I talked about before, I have the shipping set up better this time, but I said, just tell us what it is that you want, and what price would be good for you, kind of thing like that. Or maybe he told us right away. But anyway, he wanted to pay $70 for this glassware, these 2 glassware pieces. So I think we did $70 shipped. The mid-century glasses had been listed for quite a while. They weren't marked. They were kind of glasses that slid into these stainless sleeve type things. And then it was the 2 Clyban shot glasses that I had picked up before. So we put those together for him, reserved it as a bundle. He paid right away. And I don't think he lives super far away from us, so shipping wasn't too terrible. Or actually, we probably just used a Depop label. Yeah, I think we did. Anyway, but we covered it. Okay, so Pacific Power, I probably showed this to you before. This was this is how we handled it. The buyer, I got notification that the hat was coming back to me, and then I got a message from the buyer when he noticed. He said, oh, I had the wrong address in my account. And he's like, is there any way you could resend it once you get it back. And so we were trying to figure out how the best way to do it. And it turned out it was just the easiest thing was to cancel and refund that first sale. And then I just relisted it at the price that we had agreed on before. I said, make sure you update your address. And he did. So it all worked out super great. And he repurchased it as soon as that new listing was up. We did pick these up on our little road trip. Kind of came across, we were at a thrift store and came across like their little bin of glassware, eyewear, I should say, not glassware, and saw these kind of funky aviator style safety glasses with the shields here on the side, and these sold for $25. And then nice sale on here. I think this was just full asking price, $68 for these floral frames. Now I've talked about in my my frame video. I talked about seeing some lots of frames and like mid-century looking ones or whatever. And so this was my first time kind of playing around with all these frames I picked up at our clearance center. And so I probably paid less than $1 for all of, for each of them, maybe 25 cents a piece or something like that. But I picked all ones that have a very similar, they're very 80s, 90s, these pastel florals. And the idea is people make gallery walls with this. So I went ahead and lotted it up. It took I'd say a couple months or so, and I was surprised it was actually Depop that they ended up selling on. So that was kind of nice, and it sold, because there's no fees, it sold for $68. So a nice week on Depop, and we've just been working it a little bit harder and making sure we're sending offers and doing things like that. And I don't know, we've just, like I said, I had more sales there than I did on Posh. Ramey Brook, some pieces of Ramey Brook can actually go pretty high. Come on, here we go. I'm just trying to get to the tag here. But this was turned out to just be like a swim cover-up, just the top for a swim cover-up, but it sold pretty quickly for $30. A baseball hat, nothing special, $12 for Rocky Mountain hunting calls. Very typical of the theme of stuff I find around here in Montana. Howler Brothers. The day I found all my Howler Brothers, this was the first piece I found, and I had never seen Howler Brothers as a Henley, but this sold for $34. And another kind of basic hat. This one's been listed for a while, but it sold for $14 finally. And an Ariat reversible puffer vest. I am pretty sure I picked up at Goodwill one day, and it sold for $44. I think, oh, this is the one. I did message the buyer. We found a little, Mr. Pishwash was packing it up, and he found a hole. And so we messaged the buyer and said, hey, we found a defect that we had missed originally. And do you want us to cancel? What do you want us to do? And I got no answer. So I said, you know what? It's Posh. Just send it. We'll see what happens. It's better than just canceling or not sending it or whatever. And I don't think we heard anything ever back. So, and I'm sure the transaction is like done at this point, but kind of forgot about that. Okay, patterns. Had a fairly good week selling patterns. This quick sew pattern sold like within a week or so for $15 for the doggy coats. Super cute. Sold some fabric. Bought a bunch of fabric at the thrift store recently, and it was kind of I promise I'll get it listed. I've done some of it. But anyway, these were I got these a while back, and I was like, I thought they were really cool. And so I was like, I went and dug them out again, and I got those listed while I was kind of in my fabric listing mode. But it's just 1 yard. I have it kind of folded for this picture so you could see the whole repeat. But It's a digital print fabric. I had it in this color, and then I have it in black and white. And so this sold for $20. I have it on eBay, had it on eBay, cross-posted it to Etsy. It's a sewing shop, so I cross-post my fabric into there. And it sold on Etsy for $20 for the 1 yard. This Vogue pattern sold for $10, but we listed it in the last couple weeks, pretty recently. Same with this. I got this at a yard sale, thrift store for $1. It's a thrift store in the area that does price all their patterns at $1, so I'm a little pickier about which ones I pick up from there. But Issey Miyake will be a no-brainer for sure. I'll always pay $1 for an Issey pattern. $29 is what it sold for within a few days. This one sold for $24. This costume, Fashion Historian by Simplicity, kind of Civil War era reenactment type costume. Then over in the other Etsy shop that Mr. Pishposh still is kind of running is we sold this cheese slicer, one of my favorite types of utensils to sell. He had some kind of coupon going, so it sold for $18.74. And the handle was a little bit different than the ones we normally see. I know I got that, I don't even know. I got it recently. Yard sale, thrift store, something like that. Oh, I think thrift store. I kind of remember that. Sold another one of our wood grain alarm clocks by GE, $26.24. Must have been another coupon that got used. And some brass coasters that also must have been a sale or a coupon, $22.49. Now Mercari, we had a few sales over there, $43 for this vintage pancake Max Factor makeup. I had sold, I don't know, I had sold it once on eBay, but they were like trying to negotiate the price after the fact. And so I just kind of canceled the whole thing, and it sold again on Mercari for $43. I sold this Starbucks mug for $14, and these sneakers for $35 that I found at the thrift store. Again, no fees on Mercari, so we're happy to, even though it's not my favorite platform, we're happy to accept any sales that happen there. And then Ruby Lane, I gotta say, beginning of August was not so great for Ruby Lane. Pretty quiet over there. And that week we just sold this one necklace for $10. So anyway, that was my week. Hopefully you guys had a good selling week. Anything you want to share, leave me a comment down below. Like I said, I'll have another Flatware video coming out on Friday for Flatware Friday. And we'll talk to you soon. And hopefully you guys are doing good with your listing challenge. Some of the comments I've seen look really good as people are, you know, making some sales from some of the things that they're getting listed as well. So that's awesome. I will talk to you guys later and have a great rest of the week. Well, at least I'll see you Friday.